Good morning. I want to extend my welcome to everyone here today. I know we have some that are visiting with us. We, as mentioned earlier, had a wedding yesterday. That was a great time. I know we were up helping with that. I was on my feet, I think, for like 8 hours, and I'm feeling that today. And I'm not saying that's going to influence the length of the sermon. It could, but but it was a good day. We always enjoy seeing young people that join their lives together and start their families, and we get to help with that. We're going to start some lessons today on the lifestyle of Jesus. I had some thoughts that go back many years, that some thoughts that I had heard. Some of this came from my father had written some things down, and those kind of jogged my thoughts, and I wanted to bring those together. About 5 years ago, I had the opportunity. There were some of the younger families were having a study together, and at the time we did that study over a web meeting, because we had people in different states and different places, and they asked me to participate in that and present some lessons. And so we talked through some of this material. We did a little bit different format because it was more of a discussion at the time, and I think there's only one family in the room today that was part of that, so they get to hear some of this again, but I got their permission to do that, and it'll be a little bit different as we go through it, simply because it'll just be me presenting the material. I want to start to think about the lifestyle of Jesus and what that means to us, and what we can learn from that. In Ecclesiastes chapter 1, beginning of verse 16, I commune my heart, saying, look, I have attained greatness and gained more wisdom than all who were before me in Jerusalem. My heart has understood great wisdom and knowledge. And I set my heart to know wisdom, to know madness and folly. And I perceive that this also is grasping for the wind. Here he says, in essence, I tried to look at life, and I tried to know everything, I tried to obtain everything, and I tried to have as much fun as possible to enjoy my life, looking for the happiness and the meaning in life. That was his lifestyle that he was trying to live. In chapter 2 and verse 11, he says, then I looked on all the works that my hands had done, and on the labor in which I had toiled, and indeed all was vanity and grasping for the wind. There was no profit under the sun. When I walk in on Wednesday night and Mike Minson says, how is your work week going? This always goes through my head, that verse. Vanity and grasping for the wind. He looked at the work that he was doing and said, what am I doing with all this? And when we think about a lifestyle, perhaps that's what we start to think about. There was an old show that ran for a number of years, actually ran up into the early part of my life. This Is Your Life. This Is Your Life. I mean, some of you may remember that, watching that show. I think it originally started as a radio program, but basically in the show, for those who don't know, there would be some person, usually a famous person, an actor or some other famous person, and an athlete maybe, and they would go surprise them, and basically they would bring them in front of the studio audience, and they would start talking about their life, kind of going through the details, when they were born and growing up, and then they would bring people onto the show that were part of their life at different times, or that they had interacted with, to talk about them and kind of tell stories about their life. Pretty interesting to lay out someone's life that way and kind of get a sense of their lifestyle, if you will. Now, I kind of preferred the Bugs Bunny version myself, because the way it was presented, it was, this is a life? It was asked that way, looking at someone's life saying, this is a life? You live this way? And maybe that's how we tend to look at ourselves when we think about the words that Solomon had there back in Ecclesiastes, looking at his life. Maybe we look at our own lifestyle and say, This is my lifestyle? This is the life I'm living? And maybe we think about it that way. Well, let's get a foundation for our study first. Let's kind of think about this a little bit more. I want to think about some foundational things. When I say the word lifestyle, what does that mean to you? What thoughts pop into your head? When I think about it, and kind of my initial thoughts, I tend to honestly think about a lot of things that were mentioned there in Ecclesiastes. And I think that's what a lot of the world thinks about. When you think about defining a lifestyle, it's about the things that I have. Maybe the places I am able to travel. Maybe it's my job, my career, the importance of it, what work I'm doing. I think a lot of people define lifestyle by those things, and maybe you do too. But what I want to accomplish with this study is really understanding the lifestyle of Jesus and why it is important for us to imitate that. If we define a lifestyle, it's really the way a person lives. It's their habits in life, the things that they're doing by habit, their attitudes, their daily activities. That's really what a lifestyle involves. It's doing those things and really what task are you doing each day and how are you going about those. And so that could involve a variety of things, and it's different for all of us. But when we think about that, we can start to try to define our lifestyle by the wrong things. We can start to look at things in the lives of others, honestly, and say, well, I want to imitate that. And it's interesting, Jensen and I were talking about this yesterday. The whole concept of lifestyle is very much a topic on the minds of people today, especially younger people, because there's a real, just the word had left me just now, but there's kind of this thought process out there that people need to seek out ways to have a better lifestyle. And they go out and they seek, either they'll call it a life coach or a lifestyle coach, or I've even heard it called a lifestyle guru. They seek people that are going to tell them how to live a better, happier, more productive life. And they're seeking advice from these individuals. And you'll see with with social media and bringing that about, there are a lot of people that are called influencers on social media, and some of those are lifestyle influencers. It's people that some will follow them in social media. Well, what are they doing? What are they wearing? Where are they traveling to? What things are they doing? What are their habits in life? And I'm going to try to imitate those things. That's how people are trying to build their lifestyle. So lifestyle is a very, very important thing. Another foundation is the Gospel of Mark. We're going to use the Gospel of Mark as we go through these lessons, not to be an exhaustive study of Mark in any way, and not that we won't reference other things, because we will, but there's a lot of things in the Gospel of Mark that help us to understand the lifestyle of Jesus, to really get a glimpse into what his lifestyle was and how we can imitate that. And there's several reasons for that. One of the things you think about, the Gospel of Mark was written in the lingua franca of the time, Greek. You might say, what's the lingua franca? Well, what that basically means is in the world at that time, Greek was the common language. You had people that spoke Aramaic or maybe other languages, but Greek became what would be called a lingua franca. And that means basically it's the language that is used for trade or for negotiations. It's kind of a common language that people could speak to some extent, maybe not fluently, but they could navigate the world in different languages. And over time, this has changed. There was a time when the lingua franca was French. Today, it would be considered English, because English is in some regard spoken by a lot of the world. and can be used for minor trade negotiations, things like that. And so because of that, because that language is what it was written in, then it was written, you could say, to a much broader audience. It's a larger group of people would have been able to glean something from this gospel as they were reading it. And so the things that are spoken about with Jesus and giving that understanding certainly helps a larger, wider group of people. And that same group of people was living in a Roman-dominated world, a world where Rome and the Roman Empire had gone out and overtaken various parts of the world in an effort to kind of bring those things together, those places together. And if you really think about this, a lot of the world at that time, there's a lot of things about it that are very similar to our Western culture today. Some of the advancements in technology, just kind of the broad scale of the influence on the world and other countries. And the United States, like it or not, has a large influence on other nations. And so when we think about the Gospel of Mark and the lifestyle of Jesus, a lot of what we read in there can start to help us understand our lifestyle in today's world, because he was living in that world, and the things that were written help us to see how we can live in this world today and the things that go on around us. Well, why would we imitate the lifestyle of Jesus is the question before us. We might look at it and say, well, I understand on the surface why I might want to imitate Jesus. I mean, he's the Son of God. But then I might look at it and say, well, can I really imitate his lifestyle? I'm certainly not the Son of God. I'm human. I'm sinful. I've got these struggles in life. I'm not like him. Well, I don't think that's the right way to think about this. There's a number of reasons why it's important that we think about the lifestyle of Jesus and start to imitate that. Jesus called people to his lifestyle. He called people to his lifestyle instead of adapting to theirs, instead of kind of just living in the world and just kind of figuring out how to fit in. He was calling people to his lifestyle. From the reading this morning, Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you to become fishers of men." If you're going to call somebody to do something, there's a couple of things that have to happen. One, you need to know what you're calling them to do and understand it. And two, you need to know where you're calling them to go. And Jesus knew both of those things. He had the confidence to be able to say, "Come follow me, come live like I live, come learn to live your life just as I'm living it." And he's calling you and I to do the same thing when we think about living our lifestyle and imitating the lifestyle of Jesus. He left footsteps for others to follow. He left a path for us. 1 Peter chapter 2:21, "For to this you were called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that you should follow in his footsteps." Now, if you remember what I said earlier about lifestyle and about how in general people think of lifestyle, people are seeking a lifestyle, and they're seeking someone to tell them about a lifestyle that's going to make them happy, that's going to give them joy, that's going to make life easier. That's not what Jesus did. It says he left us an example, but that example is that he suffered for us. It wasn't easy. You look at his life and the things that he endured, whether it was just simply people mocking him, trying to find fault in him, all the way up through enduring the cross. He left an example of suffering, of difficulty. When we're going to imitate the lifestyle of Christ, we need to understand that it's not intended to be some rosy thing. It's not intended to find a place where it's just great happiness and joy and everything becomes easy. That's not the example. The example was one of suffering. He left that path to follow. But when somebody leaves a path, what we can understand is that you and I can walk in the same footsteps and avoid the pitfalls in life. Not that it's necessarily an easy path, but we can avoid the dangers. Because Christ went through this life, was tempted, yet without sin. And you and I can follow that same path if we look for it. We think, well, I need to have the mind of Christ in order to imitate the lifestyle of Jesus, in that order. Mind first, then imitate the lifestyle. And what I would say to you today is that perhaps it's the reverse of that. When we imitate the lifestyle of Jesus, when we start to imitate his habits, his way of thinking, his way of doing things, his way of looking at the world around him, then we can start to have the mind of Christ. Philippians 2 verse 5, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. And Ephesians 4:15, but speaking the truth in love, may grow up in all things into him who is the head, Christ. You see, when we start to imitate the lifestyle, then we can start to have that mind of Christ, and that mind of Christ helps us grow up into those things, into him who is the head of all things. The lifestyle will help us to grow toward that. And so, don't think that you have to suddenly wake up and say, well, I've got the mind of Christ, and now I can start to live this lifestyle and follow Jesus. That's not really the order, I don't think, that we go in. We start to imitate the things of Jesus, the way he thinks, and then we start to then have the mind of Christ, so that the next time something comes up, the next time there's a decision to be made, a challenge that's before us, now we're thinking about it differently. And we can work our way through that. We can follow those footsteps. And we'll have a lifestyle that is noticed by others. Now, as I read this, and as I was thinking about this, I thought, well, when I put this on the screen, somebody's going to say, well, now wait a minute. I don't want to have a life that people notice me. I'm going to mention something later about this as well, I think, but I know there's individuals in this room that would prefer not to be noticed, not to be out in the limelight, not to be seen. And that's not what I'm talking about. It's not about having a life that people we've developed a lifestyle that people are looking at us and saying, oh, well, how great this person is. That's not what I'm referring to at all. If you look at Acts chapter 4, verse 13, it says, now when they saw the boldness of Peter and John and perceived that they were uneducated and untrained men, they marveled. And they realized that they had been with Jesus. So people were looking at Peter and John and taking note of their lifestyle, if you will. They were looking at them and saying, well, wait a minute, these guys are uneducated, they're untrained. They're a couple of bumpkins from down the road that go fishing, but they took notice of them. And that last sentence is the key. They realized that they had been with Jesus. You see, it's not about people noticing you and I as individuals. It's about them seeing Jesus. When our lifestyle is imitating Jesus, they start to see Jesus. They start to see who he is. So it's not about them looking at you and I, but it's about us pointing toward him. What I want to do for the remainder of our time today is look at some descriptions of the lifestyle of Jesus. And this is going to set us up for our next few studies. Let's kind of describe the lifestyle of Jesus a little bit more. Let's peel the onion back a bit. Jesus did not try to be something he was not. That's the first thing we see. He didn't try to go out and be something that he was not. He was exactly who he said he was, all the time. Mark chapter 9, verse 34 and 35, it says, but they kept silent, for on the road they had disputed among themselves who would be the greatest. And he sat down and called the 12, and he said to them, If anyone desires to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all. You see, Jesus was here to serve, and he was trying to teach them that because they're arguing amongst themselves as they're looking at who they wanted to be. We know that they looked at Jesus and had these high hopes that Jesus was going to assume a throne, and he was going to basically get the Romans out of the way, and he was going to be in charge. And so you can see why they're arguing amongst themselves. They wanted to be part of that. They wanted to be up there in the top parts, in his cabinet, if you will. They wanted to be part of those things. And so they're having these arguments, and Jesus has to sit them down and say, you need to understand something. If you desire to be first, then you have to be last. You have to be a servant of all. Your lifestyle has to change. Your thought process has to change. You have to think about serving people. Jesus served others, but he remained focused on his mission, the task at hand. You see, when Jesus was talking about serving and teaching them that they had to become servants, he was practicing this. And as such, he was still focused on the mission at hand, the things that he was here to accomplish. In Luke chapter 19, verse 10, it says, "For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which is lost." That was his task, was to seek and save the lost. In order to find the lost, he had to serve. He couldn't go sit on a throne somewhere and have people coming to wait on him and serve him. How was he ever going to find those that needed to be cared for? How was he going to find the lost? You see, he had to become a servant, and he had to live his life that way. But in serving people, he never lost sight of what that mission was. He never set that aside and focused on other things. He was a people person, and he was casual. I think that's one of the things. There's kind of been a television show produced about the life of Christ, and one of the things that I find interesting about it is how they've presented his interactions with people in a very casual, loving manner, really drawn to people, really kind of putting that in the forefront. Because if you read about Jesus and his interactions with people, you can really start to see this. When I say he was casual, what I mean is there's not all this formality that goes with it. He's very down to earth. He's connecting with people that others at the time who thought a lot of themselves wouldn't have looked twice at. They certainly wouldn't have gone to their homes, certainly wouldn't have talked to. There's people that they certainly wouldn't have laid their hands on and touched as Jesus did. He was very much a people person. Mark chapter 12, verse 42, "Then one poor widow came and threw in 2 mites, which make a quadrans." He's standing there with his disciples, and they're observing people placing money in the treasury. And he takes notice of this widow who throws in the small amount of money that she had, and teaches them a lesson about that. You see, Jesus was trying to get them to understand the importance of people. The importance of people that many at the time would not have thought twice about and cared about. Because those are the people that he came to seek and to save. Those are the people that he came to be near to and to look at. And so he's trying to get them to start to look at their life a little bit different, change their lifestyle so that they are looking at these individuals and taking notice of them. I think I've mentioned before about myself, and I'll drag my wife into this too. From this week, we tend to sometimes be out in public in a place, and we'll people watch quite a bit. I think we sometimes we'll be sitting together and maybe I'll say this about myself, I won't say it about her, but I tend to get distracted by people watching what's going on, around me. And I kind of catch us, maybe both of us are doing this, where we're kind of looking around the room and we know what's going on, sometimes more than we're having our own conversation. I find it interesting to watch people and see what you learn about people, even when you don't even say a word to them. Because if you really watch and you really pay attention, you can start to understand some things about their life. I'm not saying I 100% know what's going on, but you can start to really see kind of the type of person they are and maybe what's important to them. And sometimes you can pick up on there's a struggle there. There's a challenge going on. If you're really bold, then you might approach someone and start talking to them and find out what's going on, as we see in the life of Jesus. Jesus was that people person. He really was taking time to spend with people and doing it in a very casual manner. And we'll dive into more examples of that, but Mark chapter 10 is another one where we see him asking them to bring these children to him and let them spend time. And the lesson he's teaching them is, you're out there trying to keep these children away from me. You're treating them like a nuisance, like a problem. But he says, this is the kind of attitude that those in the kingdom of heaven had. This is what the kingdom is. You need to change your mind and your thoughts, is what he's trying to teach them. Your lifestyle needs to understand that. Start to think about that a little bit more. He was a people person. And the reason he was a people person goes back to his mission. Mark 2, verse 17, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. You see, when Jesus could look around a room, he could look around at the faces of individuals, and he could start to understand who was in need of a physician. Can you do that? Can you look around the room and start to see the struggles that are out there? I hope we can learn to do that with each other when there's challenges in our lives, because there are. I know there are. He was a people person. Jesus genuinely cared about people. That kind of expands on this a little bit more. He had a genuine care for people. We can somewhat care about people. We can maybe look at people and understand, oh, there's a problem and I'm sorry. But a genuine care for people is an involvement with them. It starts to take action and do things. And so we see places like Mark chapter 1 where there was a leper that was healed. Again, outcast of society, someone that nobody wanted to be around, talk to, be anywhere near, close to, because I'm going to catch whatever he has and I don't want it, and I'm going to stay away from that. Jesus had compassion on them. And it wasn't just because of the physical ailment, but the pain that they had from being separated from maybe their family and friends and others. He understood the challenge that they had. Mark chapter 5, verse 25 through 34, there was the woman with the issue of blood who had struggled with this for so long and didn't know what else to do. And yet she had faith that she could touch his garment. If I could just touch that garment, something good will happen. And she did, and it did. And she was healed of that. And Jesus had compassion. He genuinely cared about the struggles there. Mark chapter 5, again, towards the end of the chapter, we see this man and his daughter has died, and he seeks out Jesus. He's seeking hope. And Jesus goes to her and brings her back to life. He cared about the struggles that were there with his family. The pain that the father and mother had, the difficulty that was going to bring to their life. He genuinely cared about that. And in Mark chapter 8, feeding of the 4,000, he's looking around at these people that had followed him for days. And he says to his closest disciples, I have compassion on them. They've been following us. They haven't eaten. He's looking at these people saying, they followed me. They're following to listen to what I have to say. But they're doing it at their own peril. They're not eating. They're following, walking. And he genuinely cared about them, had compassion, and wanted to take care of the need that they had. So Jesus, part of his lifestyle was that genuine care for people, that he really wanted to see them cared for and understand their issues and help in ways that he could. He was confident because he knew that his work was important. He knew that his work was important, and that gave him a high degree of confidence. In Mark chapter 4, beginning verse 37, a great windstorm arose and the waves beat to the boat so that it was already filling, but he was in the stern asleep on a pillow. And they awoke him and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? Then he arose and rebuked the wind. And he said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he said to them, Why are you so fearful? How is it you have no faith? Now the lesson here is that Jesus is asleep in the boat while the storm is raging. And Jesus was confident in what he was here to accomplish. And he was so confident that despite the storm that's tossing the boat and filling the boat with water, he understood that wasn't going to be the end of things. That's not how that was set up. He was going to continue through this. And he's using it as an opportunity to teach them about having confidence as well. Because they're following him, and he's teaching them what he's here to accomplish and bringing them into his lifestyle. And yet when that storm of life starts, or that storm starts to rage in their life, they start to get worried and scared. What are we going to do? Why doesn't he care? It's not that he didn't care, but he had the confidence to know that they were going to be okay. And he's trying to get them to have that same confidence in their life. And when we think about imitating the lifestyle of Jesus, that's one of the challenges that we have to work through. Because life is going to rage storms around us. There's going to be difficulties and things that happen, and we're going to be sitting there going, does Jesus even care? Does he care about me? Does he care about my challenges, my difficulties? Does he care about my struggles and what's happening to me today? And what am I going to do about it? And how am I going to get through this? We do the same thing. I'm looking at a room full of people, and I'm pretty confident that a vast majority of us have done this very thing, including me. We worry. I saw somebody make the comment that 99% of the things I worry about never happen. So worrying must work. Right? That's how we think about it. If I worry about it enough, then maybe it won't happen. Jesus is trying to get them to understand, be confident. Develop a lifestyle that is confident in where God is taking you, and all this other stuff won't matter. Will it be rough? Yeah. You going to get seasick? Probably. But the end is going to be okay. That's what he wants us to bring into our lifestyle. He lived what he taught without contradiction. He went through life living the things that he was teaching without contradiction. He wasn't out there saying, well, do these things while he's out doing something different. You know, you need to live your life this way, but that's not for me. He didn't do that. Everything he taught, he lived it, and he didn't contradict himself. Things like turn the other cheek. When people are saying things to you, when they're treating you badly, turn the other cheek. Don't retaliate. Don't worry about it. I told somebody yesterday, I've lived outside of Oklahoma City now long enough. I don't really like the traffic in Oklahoma City anymore. It bothers me. People bother me. I'll just be honest. The traffic and how they're driving. And I have to really think about this. I'm like, they didn't cut me off because they're trying to make my day bad, or pull out in front of me, or whatever the case may be, or drive too slow in front of me. All these things. I have to just let those things go. And I don't do a very good job at it sometimes. Loving one another. He loved people. He taught it and he lived it. Serving others. He would serve people. He taught them to be servants, told them you've got to have this as part of your lifestyle, and he lived it. He served people as much as possible. And don't be caught up in the quest for riches. It's not going to get you anywhere. He never sought those things. He's like, I think he makes the statement, he didn't even have a place to lay his head, didn't even have a home. That was his mindset. Don't get caught up in that to the detriment of your life. And that's caused a lot of people problems. Even if they're not seeking some great amassed fortune, but just seeking a little bit sometimes can be a problem. He was courageous. Jesus was courageous. We see things coming up in his life that the vast majority of us, I think, would probably not handle the same way he did. You know, in the garden when he was facing his arrest, he knew what was coming. He was praying. He was going to God more than once. He was preparing himself to face what was coming, to be courageous, to face what was going to happen to him, and he knew it was going to be difficult. Later in the same chapter, he's standing before the council, he's being abused, and he courageously faces those things. Having a lifestyle that is courageous is important. And maybe we've been spoiled and we don't necessarily feel like we have to be that courageous. But is the time coming when we will? I don't know. Are you prepared for that? Jesus wants us to have a courageous part in our lifestyle. He demonstrated conviction as well. He demonstrated that he had a conviction. In John chapter 8, he said to them, "You are from beneath, I am from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world. Therefore I said to you that you will die in your sins, for if you do not believe that I am he, you will die in your sins." And then they said to him, "Who are you?" And he said to them, "Just what I have been saying to you from the beginning." In John 14 and verse 6, Jesus said to them, or to him, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." He demonstrated conviction by saying these things. I am the way. That was something difficult to say, to be able to, maybe not difficult for him, I shouldn't say it that way, but that's a hard truth to say, to tell people. There's not a lot of different ways you can accomplish this. There's one. And having that conviction and being able to stand before people and say, I am that one singular way to come to the Father. That took courage, took conviction to be able to say that. So when he looked at the things, that mission he had in life, and when he was thinking about what he was here to accomplish, to seek and to save the lost, he was doing it because of this, because he had this conviction that this was the truth and the way that people needed to follow. And that's what he was calling them to do, when he was calling them to follow his lifestyle. He didn't compromise truth. In Mark chapter 2, when Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven you." And some of the scribes were sitting there and reasoning in their hearts, "Why does this man speak blasphemies like this? Who can forgive sins but God alone?" But immediately when Jesus perceived in his spirit that they reasoned thus within themselves, he said to them, "Why do you reason about these things in your hearts? Which is easier to say to the paralytic, 'Your sins are forgiven you,' or to say, 'Arise, take up your bed and walk'? But that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins," He said to the paralytic, I say to you, arise, take up your bed, and go to your house. He didn't compromise the truth. The truth was he had the power to forgive sins. Absolutely. And he had the power to heal this man. And he put that choice before them. Which one's harder? Is it harder for me to forgive sins, to say to someone, you're forgiven? Or is it harder to make this man who hasn't walked get up and pick up his bed and start walking? Which one's harder to happen? You see, they were hung up on the first one. They were stuck on that, thinking, well, how can he do this? That's not up to him to do. But the truth was the truth, and he didn't compromise that. He wasn't going to compromise it. He wasn't going to back down from it and change up and say something that, well, I didn't really mean that, or kind of alter the story a little bit. No, it was what it was, and he wanted them to understand that. He didn't have that compromise for the truth. Well, let's give some thoughts to take home today. I'd like to give you something, as I always do, something to take home and think about, put into practice this week. So let's think about a few things here, and then we'll be finished for the morning. Your lifestyle is important and worthy of thoughtful consideration. Your lifestyle. Do you think about that? Do you think that your lifestyle is important individually? No, that's not. Nobody cares about me. Nobody knows. It's important. And because it's important, it's worthy of thinking about, to consider, what lifestyle am I living? Who am I imitating? Who am I trying to imitate? Is it Jesus? Or is it some person we've never met that we think does great things? What are we trying to imitate? Our lifestyle is very important. Do you have the confidence to call others to your lifestyle? Are you confident enough in your lifestyle, what you're living today, to say to someone else, I know this is the right way. Follow me. Jesus did that. Follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. What? Give up what I'm doing to go do this? Yes. Do you have the confidence in your own lifestyle to be able to go to someone else and say, I know a better way, and have them follow you? Are you trying to be something you're not? Think about that a little bit. Do you kind of maybe present yourself different out in the world? That's a hard one. I've made that mistake. Kind of maybe don't let people see all of who I am or something, and just kind of present myself differently. And do you know and do you focus on the right mission? Do you know what's before you and what you're here to accomplish in this life? And does that drive the decisions you make each and every day? Or have you kind of determined a different mission in life, something that is more important to you, and that's what you're chasing after? And if so, are you going to end up at the end of your life like Solomon, saying, that was just grasping for the wind? It was vanity. Your lifestyle impacts the lifestyles of others. That's something to think about. How you live, your lifestyle, has an impact on others, positive and negative. Are you a people person? I said I would come back to this. I was thinking about this as I was kind of preparing this lesson, and I knew I was going to be standing up here, and there's probably at least 5 or 6 people I could name off right now that are sitting in this room who I've had conversations with, who are vocal about telling me that they are an introvert. They'll say, I'm an introvert. Very, very vocal about that. Don't confuse that statement, are you a people person, with introversion and extroversion. Don't get caught up in that. Because those same people that I'm thinking about, I have had one-on-one conversations with them that were very meaningful, that impacted me, that taught me something, or made me laugh, or helped me to kind of refocus myself on maybe the right things. I'm thinking of one individual that has apologized to me for, oh, I'm taking up too much of your time. No, you're not. You're being a people person. Your lifestyle is influencing mine, and it influences others as well. Do you have a genuine concern for the lives of others? I'm pretty sure, I'm fairly confident most of us have that concern for one another. Because we try to make sure we understand the lives of one another. You should see the conversations that, the elders and deacons and evangelists, we are constantly communicating with one another. When there's difficulties, when things need to be taken care of, and there's an issue at hand, or somebody's got a struggle, we're always trying to talk through those things. How can we help? What can we do? I think there's a genuine concern here for the lives of others. Your lifestyle is a vehicle to further the gospel. You see, when Jesus was living his lifestyle, at the end of the day, it came back to what his mission was, to seek and to save the lost. And why shouldn't ours be the same? Why shouldn't we live our lives to do the exact same thing? Do you share your conviction with other people? Are you willing to do that? The things that you know from God's word, are you willing to speak about those things? Courageous never to compromise the truth of God's word? Hopefully we can see that these are important things in our lifestyle. I want you to take those home with you today and think about them a little bit, and start to think about yourself and your lifestyle, because as we unpack this a little bit more, we're going to start to dig deeper, and if you start to answer these questions and think about them in your own life, it will help you as we go through future lessons. Well, next time we're going to talk about He has done all things well. We'll start our study there. He has done all things well. We'll give some consideration to that, and what we'll do with that is we're going to take all of these descriptions that we had of Jesus' lifestyle, and we're going to start to get some words that we can put on very specific things in Jesus' lifestyle, and then we'll be able to take each of those and break them down and see how do we put those into practice in our lifestyle. I hope you've taken something away from today, something that you can at least give consideration to and think about in your own life. Living a lifestyle is an important thing that we need to think about, but living the right lifestyle is the most important. And a lifestyle that imitates that of Jesus will never lead us to the wrong place. It will always help us act in this world and navigate through this world as God would have us to. Today, if you have a need that we can assist you with, if there's something that we can pray with you about, if you have a concern in your life, you can let us know that. You can have a seat on the front. We can certainly talk to you and pray with you and encourage you. If there's someone that is here today that has never become a child of God, never entered the waters of baptism, and has that desire to do so today, what a great day to do that. What a great day to enter those waters and come out and begin to live a different lifestyle and change who you are. If you have either one of those needs today, please let us know while we stand and sing together.